Okay, so get ready, because this deep dive is going to be all about radio frequencies.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. You guys gave us a ton of material on radio signals.
Yeah.
So we know you're not here for the basics.
Right.
We're going deep.
Okay.
We want to know what's out there, how to find it, how to listen in.
Yeah.
We're talking AM radio to the International Space Station.
Wow. That's quite a range.
It is a big range.
Yeah. It's amazing when you think about all those signals just like around us all the time, invisible.
Right.
Like we think about radio in our cars and stuff, but it's so much bigger than that.
Yeah, it's like this whole invisible network.
Yeah, it really is.
That's connecting everything.
It is. It's pretty wild.
So today we're cracking the code.
Right.
And like for starters, did you know that we could be picking up radio waves from across the globe right now as we're speaking?
It's true. Yeah, with the right equipment, you can pick those up.
Oh, okay. So let's start with something I think we're all familiar with.
Okay.
The AM band.
Okay.
Like home of the late night talk shows and your dad's classic rock,
Sure.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's so much history packed into
Yeah.
that little band on the dial.
Absolutely. Like, we take it for granted now, but picking that range of frequencies for AM radio wasn't just some arbitrary thing.
Right.
In North America, the AM band goes from 535 to 1700 kilohertz.
Okay.
And each station gets a 10 kilohertz slice of that,
Really? Just 10?
which is really narrow when you think about everything they're trying to cram in there.
Yeah, and it's funny because like it makes sense that FM radio then became like the dominant
Right.
form because you can only get so much fidelity
Exactly.
with AM.
Yeah, you get much better fidelity with FM.
Yeah.
But here's where it gets interesting.
Okay.
Even within those limitations on the AM band, you can still pick up some pretty cool stuff.
Oh, really?
Have you ever heard of DXing?
DXing. What is that?
It's basically long-distance radio listening.
Oh, okay.
So with AM, those signals can actually travel incredibly far, especially at night, because they bounce off the ionosphere.
What is that?
It's basically this layer of charged particles way up in the atmosphere.
So it's like bouncing off the atmosphere to reach further.
Exactly. It's like a trampoline for radio waves.
That's so cool.
It is pretty wild.
Wow.
And that's how you get that long-distance listening.
So that's where international shortwave radio comes in.
Exactly.
And I think our listeners provided us with a super helpful chart.
They did a great job. Yeah, this chart is awesome. It breaks down all the different bands from 4.75 megahertz all the way up to 21.85 megahertz.
Wow. And so instead of listing frequencies directly,
Right.
they're organized by these meter designations.
Yeah, you got it 60 meters, 49 meters, and so on.
Yeah.
And each one of those has kind of its own sweet spot for listening depending on the time of day.
So like the lower frequencies travel further.
Exactly. The lower the frequency, the longer the distance.
Okay.
So your best bet for catching those far-off stations is going to be during the evening and nighttime when you're on that lower end of the spectrum.
Okay.
But as you move higher up in frequency, you're going to have better reception during the day.
So you're saying that it's not as simple as just tuning in at the right time.
Right.
You have to know what frequencies to even look at.
Yeah, you got to know who's broadcasting when. It's like having a TV guide,
Okay.
but for shortwave radio.
So it's like a puzzle almost.
It is. It's a fun puzzle.
Wow, we've got our frequencies, our times, our locations.
Yeah.
And it's all got to line up for that perfect reception.
Exactly.
And thankfully, our listeners provided us with some resources for that too.
Yeah, they did some great websites like primetimeshortwave.com and shortwaveschedule.com. Those are fantastic for finding English language broadcasts and seeing who's on the air when.
Those are good resources.
Yeah, those are great.
So we've gone from like local AM radio to international broadcasts bouncing off the atmosphere.
We have.
What is next on our little radio adventure?
Well, how about we bring things a little closer to home?
Okay.
Let's talk about the frequencies that are used for public safety and emergencies.
Oh, wow. So police scanners, all that.
Exactly, that's right.
Things are getting real.
Yeah, so this is where we move into VHF and UHF bands, much higher frequencies than AM or shortwave.
Okay.
And instead of a regular radio, you'll need a scanner to listen in.
So like, how would I even begin if I wanted to listen to like my local police frequencies, for example?
Well, that's where our listener's handy chart comes in again.
They thought of everything.
I know, right? It's amazing. It outlines all sorts of common frequencies for different services.
Cool.
So, for example, you'll find state police communications often in the 39 megahertz range,
Okay.
while frequencies between 45-46 megahertz are usually designated for emergencies.
So this chart's like a cheat sheet, basically.
Yeah, it's super helpful. But there is one thing to keep in mind about it.
What's that?
Those frequency ranges are a great starting point, but they can vary depending on where you are.
Oh, so you're saying that my local police department might not be on the exact same frequency as one in a different state.
Precisely.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's always best to do a little digging to find the specific frequencies for your area.
Okay, cool. So we've got AM, we've got shortwaves,
Yeah.
we've got emergency frequencies.
Yeah.
What's next should we take to the skies?
Let's do it. Aviation frequencies are up next.
Yeah.
All right, so we're taking to the skies now with aviation frequencies.
Oh, yeah.
It gets pretty busy up here.
Oh, yeah.
It's a constant stream of chatter between pilots and air traffic control.
Oh, I can only imagine.
But it's very organized.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
I just imagine it being chaotic with so many planes up there.
It would be if there wasn't a system.
That's true.
But that's the cool thing about aviation frequencies. Every type of communication has its own designated space within the radio spectrum.
So it's like lanes on a highway
Exactly.
for all these different conversations.
You got it.
That's wild. And our listener provided a chart for this, too.
They did, and this chart's great because it lays it all out there.
There's a lot of frequencies on here.
There are, but if you look closely, you'll notice how they're grouped together logically.
Okay.
See this right here, 121.500 megahertz. That's the international distress frequency for aircraft.
Really?
Anywhere in the world. If a pilot needs to call for help, that's the frequency.
So just one frequency is like a lifeline for pilots all over the place.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's incredible.
It is. And it's pretty cool how they shorten the frequencies, too. They don't say the whole thing like 123.300 millihertz. They'll just say 2330.
Oh, that makes sense. And there's like high pressure situations, every second counts.
Exactly.
What about military aircraft, though? Do they have their own special frequencies?
They do have their own designated bands, but they're not really secret or anything.
Oh.
It's publicly available information. It's just that they can change more often than the civilian ones.
Gotcha. So it's not like some big mystery.
Right, right.
So like with a little work and some patience, maybe you could like listen in on some military exercises.
Yeah, you could.
That's really cool.
Ah.
Okay, so we've covered the skies. What about the open seas?
Let's set sail and explore marine radio frequencies. All right, so when we're talking about long-distance communication out on the open ocean, you're going to hear about something called HF marine radio telephone.
Okay.
And that operates between 4.065 and 25.115 megahertz.
HF. That sounds familiar. Is that kind of like shortwave radio?
It is the same principles apply signals bouncing off the ionosphere to travel long distances.
Makes sense.
But marine radio has this cool thing called duplex versus simplex operation.
Okay, what is that?
It's like, imagine with duplex mode, the ship and the coast station are actually transmitting on different frequencies at the same time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a two-way street of communication.
Okay.
But then there's simplex, which is more like a walkie-talkie.
Okay,
They're sharing the same frequency and have to take turns transmitting.
gotcha.
So duplex is like a phone call. Simplex is like a walkie-talkie.
I get it.
They use them in different situations.
Okay, and I'm guessing our listener provided a chart for this, too.
You know, they thought of everything.
They're the best.
So this chart here breaks down some key frequencies, like for distress signals and Coast Guard communication.
Oh, cool.
Like if a ship needs to contact the Coast Guard, they would transmit on 4.125 kilohertz, and the Coast Guard would reply on 4.417 kilohertz.
So they're offset a bit.
Exactly. There's a system to it all.
That's so cool. What about those giant antennas you always see on ships? Are those for HF radio?
Those are often for HF, yeah.
Makes sense.
They need those larger antennas to transmit and receive those really powerful long-distance signals.
Okay.
But a lot of ships also use VHF marine radio
Okay.
for more local communication.
So that's like boat to boat or something.
Exactly like with marinas and harbor masters.
So VHF, that's a different band then?
Exactly. Very high frequency.
Okay.
It uses frequencies from about 156.050 to 157.425 megahertz.
Okay.
And like HF marine radio, there are specific channels for different purposes.
Like what?
So channel 16, for example, that's the International Distress Safety and Calling Channel. It's like the 911 of the sea.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah. So if you're ever out on the water, that's a channel to be familiar with.
You got it. Okay, so we've gone from AM to shortwave to emergency frequencies, aviation, marine radio.
Yeah, we've covered a lot.
Is there anything left? Oh, we've only scratched the surface. There's still plenty of lesser-known frequencies out there, hidden gems just waiting to be discovered.
Hidden gems, you say? I am intrigued. What else is out there? Hidden gems, huh? I like the sound of that. What kind of signals are we talking about? Well, how about we start with something that could actually, like, save your life?
Okay.
NOAA weather radio.
Oh, yeah, right. Those, like, emergency weather alerts you get on your phone.
Exactly.
Sometimes you don't even want them.
Yeah, sometimes they go off at the worst times, but NOAA weather radio is more than that. It's a constant stream of weather information.
Okay.
Forecasts, warnings, hazardous conditions, you name it, broadcasting 24/7 across the U.S.
So it's like for real weather geeks or people who live in places with like tornadoes and hurricanes and stuff?
Exactly. If you're in a disaster-prone area, NOAA Weather Radio is your friend.
That makes sense.
And most stations transmit on frequencies between 162.400 and 162.550 megahertz.
Okay.
But Alaska, they do things a little differently up there.
Oh, how so?
They use 4.125 megahertz USB.
But why is Alaska different?
Well, remember how those HF signals can bounce off the ionosphere to travel super far?
Right.
Alaska's got all those mountain ranges.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
VHF reception can be tough. So they opted for a more reliable HF frequency.
That's really interesting. Like they had to work around their environment.
They found a workaround.
That's cool. Okay, so we've got weather warnings covered. What other hidden gems we got?
All right, let's talk about amateur radio.
Okay.
Or ham radio, as it's often called.
I've heard of ham radio.
This is where it gets really cool.
Okay.
Imagine this. A global network of just like hobbyists, tinkerers, people who love communication.
Cool.
All connected through radio waves.
That's so cool.
It's a really passionate community.
Yeah, I bet.
And super diverse.
Like what kind of stuff do they do?
Oh, man. You've got people building their own radios, experimenting with new technologies,
Wow.
providing communication during emergencies, and get this, even talking to astronauts on the International Space Station.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
You can talk to astronauts from like your basement?
Yeah. Through something called the ARIS program.
What is that?
Amateur radio on the International Space Station.
Oh, wow. That's a mouthful.
It is. But it's really cool. It lets schools and even just like everyday people connect with astronauts as the ISS is passing overhead.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It's a great way to get kids excited about STEM. And honestly, it's just plain awesome for anyone.
So I could theoretically listen to some of these conversations happening in space.
You absolutely can.
No way.
Yeah, the ISS transmits on specific frequencies.
Yeah.
The downlink, which is what we hear from the astronauts, that's usually 145.800 megahertz.
Okay. But the uplink, the signal going to the astronauts, that varies depending on where you are in the world.
Gotcha.
But you can find charts online that list those frequencies. It's like a global treasure hunt.
That's amazing. We've covered so much ground today, from AM radio to international shortwave to emergency frequencies, aviation, marine radio weather alerts, and even talking to astronauts.
Don't forget about walkie-talkies.
Oh, yeah, those too.
GMRS and FRS.
Yeah, what are those again? I can never keep those straight.
So those are those like family radios you see at the store.
Oh, right.
But they actually have a really interesting history and operate within the same radio spectrum as everything else we've talked about.
Wow, it's amazing to think about like all these signals just like
I know. What are they?
zipping around us all the time, carrying all this information.
It's like this invisible symphony of communication. It really is. We've learned so much today.
Me too, it's been fun.
And hopefully our listeners feel inspired to go out and explore the airwaves for themselves.
Yeah, go grab a radio, tune in, and see what you can find.
You never know what you might discover out there.
Exactly. The possibilities are